That interview was done, I want to say about 2 years ago. So it wasn't, and to my understanding, Gus Guzman now lives in Miami, Florida. And at the time of the murders, he was 18, I think he was 18 years old. And he testified at the trial. And he testified that he was up at 2:30 in the morning that night. And he didn't hear nothing. He didn't see anybody run up and down the alley. He didn't hear any screaming. He heard nothing. He said, matter of fact, he didn't even know anything was going on in the neighborhood until the police come up and knocked on his door. And he testified to that.
So he didn't see the police behind his house in finding the sock, or that he didn't hear or see the dog?
There was no dog. This is a good thing about keeping a good rapport between the supporters and non-supporters, because I learned that from Donnell.
He said he didn't see nothing until they knocked on the door, and he said he was up, wide awake. I find that very hard to believe, and you want to know why, folks? You remember the one neighbor testified at the trial, and they were quite a few doors down from the Routiers. I think
they were right across the street. He said quite a few doors down. Remember, he studied this case extensively.
They were on the corner of Linda Vista and Eagle.
The corner of Linda Vista and Eagle is not a few doors down. Let me show you. Here's the house now, which has a hair salon, Gloria's Hair Salon in Rowlett, Texas. It's being run out of that. But anyways, here's the house. And up here, way up here, not way up here, but pretty good distance, that's the corner of Linda Vista. And if you're on the corner of Linda Vista, you really can't see anybody. You might be able to. But what Rich is talking about with all his experience in studying this case, that he knows Darlie Routier is 100% innocent. What he's talking about is William Gorsuch, not Gorsh. Gorsuch. I had the pleasure of speaking to his wife. Gorsuch.
I think that's where it is, where the guy had the window open. It was a hot night. The guy had his window open. And he didn't know of anything going on until he heard the sirens coming. And when
Gorsuch heard the gate open, Rich. You said he heard that gate open because it scraped the ground. Yeah. See, now this video was done 3 years ago, right? But in his very first video, he said he studied the case extensively. He went through everything. He knows that Darlie's innocent. And we've caught him getting saying there was no blood on the sock, saying that there was xylene or chloroform used, coming up with an escape path that would lead behind. The intruder would have to come out the front door and go behind into the parking lot when he knows that can't. He never explains that. And now we have him doing this here, but he is so sure that she's innocent. You cannot learn as you go when you're standing up for somebody that is convicted of killing 2 children, Rich. You can't learn as you go. You're making your theory. You're trying to make your theory fit into your instinct, which is what James Cron did. And his fits. Yours don't.
When he heard the sirens coming, see the lights flashing, it woke him up. And right away, he looked out the window, and that's when he saw a man running down the Routier's yard.
No, he was not running down the yard. He said he saw him standing by the fountain. Standing by the fountain.
Running across the street. Chances are that was probably Darren running up.
If you'd have read the testimony, you would have known that it was Darren. And that Gorsuch knew who Darren and Darlie were. That their son played with him.
Over to the nurse's house that lived across the street.
Karen Neal. You should know all this stuff because you've worked with some of the world's best. You've been trained with some of the best. You should have absorbed all of these details like I have. I guess I'm a private investigator now.
But didn't
Now watch. Watch Kathy correct him.
Gorsh? Are you talking about Gorsh?
No, there is no Gorsh. It's Gorsuch.
Because he testified that he saw the officers stop him and they both followed back into the house.
Yeah.
And that he heard.
And Rich is like, yeah. Because he got corrected. He got corrected a couple times on Zavgirl's channel, too. Now, they might say that this is a long time ago, 3 years ago, but he had been putting out videos for 2 years at this point. In his very first video, he says he studied it extensively and he knows 100% that she's innocent. But he's putting out stuff without knowing out all the facts.
Heard Darren when he saw the lights, that he got up and he saw Darren and heard him screaming in the yard.
In the yard, not running across the street. Thank you for correcting him.
And the police were there and had him at gunpoint and then made him go back in the house. And
Rich is agreeing with her when he just got it all wrong. Now he's agreeing with her.
I think he was 2 doors down, but he was to the front of their house.
He wasn't 2 doors down. He was on the side of their house. I just showed at Gorsuch's house. He was on the side where he had a view of the alley and the front. He had a perfect view.
Yeah.
And the Guzmans are to the rear of their house.
Guzmans are in the rear. The Guzmans, they're in the rear.
So the alley side, he's behind them and down 1 door.
Well, if you're looking at the Routier house, the house right to their left, because they're in the cul-de-sac, you know that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, the first house to the left was the Blakeney's house. And then the house on the other side of the Blakeney's house was the Guzman's house.
No, it wasn't. Unless you mean the back. Let's take a look. Let me find it. I don't want to say he's wrong unless he's in the back. Okay, this is Gorsuch's house, which it's not 1 or 2 houses down. It's right directly across. This is Jonathan Blakely's house. 79 years old, still lives there. But Guzman, now if he's saying this is Guzman's house, he's wrong. If that's what he's saying, you have to go around the back. I don't want to say he's wrong when he's right. All right. This would be Darling Darren. This would be Blakely's. Now he says this is Guzman's. If he says this is Guzman's, he's wrong. Because this is Guzman right here. The big fence didn't used to be here. The kitchen window is right there. He said he was sitting at his kitchen window, and right here is where the sock was found.
And that's where the walkthrough is for the fences. That's where the sock was found, down by the trash receptacle or storm sewer opening or whatever you want to call it. And I find that very hard to believe that Gus Guzman did not hear any commotion, any sirens, any nothing, and he was wide awake. But yet, a neighbor testified who even lived further away, testified to the fact that he was awoken by lights and sirens and screaming and yelling and all kinds of stuff.
What was this other neighbor, Rich, that testified that they heard all that? I don't. Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong.
What's going on? So I find that strange. And he not only testified to that, but he also told my good friend that interviewed him the same thing. I didn't know nothing. And my good friend asked him in the interview, he said, what were you doing that night? Why were you up so late? And you know what? He couldn't give an answer to any of that. The only thing that he said is earlier that night that he was skating with a couple of friends that actually lived on the same street. And they played some video games, and he went home, and then he just decided to stay up all night. So it's just, in my opinion, kind of a strange way of saying why he was up all night. I just think,
Well, he just didn't want to go to bed. He tried to sleep. He didn't want to go to bed. Why is that suspicious?
stayed up all night because I felt like it. Now, it is true that he's 18 years old. Young guys like that. I mean, I did that at 18, but I usually had an ulterior motive to do that.
He played video games. He was watching TV.
Had a female over at the house, or I was getting into trouble or something like that as to why I would stay up all night. Other than that, I usually in
Rich,
bed.
you've got to be able to know what you did. You sat and watched TV. You played video games. This kid did not sit there and twiddle his thumbs the whole night.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what he was doing. Matter of fact, let's take a look. Gustavo Guzman Jr. is explaining that he got home between 11 and 12. He walked through that opening because his friend dropped him off on Eagle Drive, and he just walked home from there. And the answer is, you remember what time it was? Between 11 and 12 or 11 and 1? I don't know. Between 11 and 1 in the morning, yeah. Were you keeping track of time? No. Had no reason to keep track of time. Plus, he had been skating all day, so he might not have been ready to go to bed yet. And what did you do once you got home? I watched TV in the kitchen. Do you remember what time you went to bed? No, it was late. And that's all he says about it, Rich. And if you go along a little bit further, he just said, no, it was late. That's what time he went to bed. Was anyone else in the house up? Was anything going down the block? Now, he's watching TV. Do you see any police cars? No. Okay, later that morning, were you awakened by some police officers? Yes. Do you remember what time it was? No. Okay, how were you awakened? I wasn't awakened. I was still watching TV. Still watching TV? Mm-hmm. In the kitchen, and I saw the windows, through the window, the police officers with their flashlights. Mm-hmm. They said he didn't even see it until he was knocking on the door. He was awakened because he saw them with their flashlights out the window. And I just looked out the window and I let them do what they needed to do. You saw police officers with flashlights? Yes. And they were looking, and where were they looking? With their flashlights on the grass, through the fence. First I saw through the kitchen window and then the back door. Were they behind your house then? Yes, sir. In the alley? Yes, sir. Did you go out? No. What did you do then? I just ignored them. I went back to sleep. Then I went up and went to sleep. You went upstairs? So they just got all that wrong. They didn't read the testimony.
Exactly. That's exactly the point that I'm getting at. So, it's just very strange. And Darley Key believes he knows something.
Why is it very strange that a boy who had been an 18-year-old boy who had been skating up until about 1 o'clock at the latest, came home, got himself something to eat, and sat and watched TV and stayed up watching TV? Why is that? What's strange about that, Rich?
And he just don't want to say it. And it's he was really playing stupid in the interview as well. He tried saying that he said he never met the Routiers. He didn't know them. He said that, and what happened over there again? He told the interviewer that, my buddy. And I'm thinking to myself, I mean, are you serious, dude, with that?
You testified at a trial,
yeah,
and you don't know what happened?
He don't know exactly what happened over there, and that's what he was talking about.
I'm going to be, he seemed very nervous, very uneasy, and wouldn't answer the questions. So I wish me and Tara could get a hold of him for about 30 minutes. We could have a good time, because I would remind him, can you answer the question, please? I don't care about Miami, Florida. I need to know, But anyway, a very interesting interview, and very strange, very strange.
Well, and like I said, he obviously has his agenda, and is worried, or it's a small town. Everybody knows everybody.
That's
So I'm
right.
sure there's lots of rumors. And
Well, now the Watts lived right across the street from Darley and Darren for 3 years and never spoke to him.
lots of innuendo, and lots of people that think that there's probably a dozen other good suspects, but no one wants to say anything because they don't want to rock the boat.
Rock the boat, don't rock the boat, baby. Rock the boat, don't tip the boat over. Rock the boat, don't rock the boat, baby. Rock the boat.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.